It's like automation of automation, not just making your tasks faster, but basically rewriting the entire workflow. Again, it's moving from being a co-pilot to an agent. It's like we're moving towards executing complex work autonomously. And some people are pretty far along on that, as we saw at the event, and some people are behind. I'll put myself in the behind category compared to them. But these people are at the tip of the spear on AI adoption in the room, right? They are doing some incredible things. That, again, automation of automation. It's basically, it's the entire workflow being rewritten.
Thank you for listening to the Ask AI podcast. To get our latest episodes, AI news, discount codes for events, and links to free resources, sign up to our monthly newsletter by visiting askai.org and clicking the subscribe link. That's askai.org. So, David, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Chris. Nice to be here.
Awesome to have you. So where do we find you today?
I'm in North Vancouver. That's where my company, Q Business Media, is based and where we produce our conferences across the country from, in North Van.
So Vancouver is such an exciting town, and one I have not spent enough time in, to be honest. I planted trees there as a university student, not in Vancouver, but nearby. There's a lot of good tech going on there, but just generally very vibrant scene. And I think what Vancouver's always had is that quality of life that so many tech workers seek out, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just out the back door, it's it's wilderness, if you will. But we can work in our innovation bubble and have a little bit of the wilderness just out the side door anytime we want. That's the beauty of the city.
Deeply envious. So welcome to the show. What I found this year, in all honesty, and I posted about this on LinkedIn, was just like, I've been to a lot of tech shows, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners have as well. But just there was something about the vibe of the show that felt really welcoming. It was almost like a giant living room to me kind of vibe. And there was a lot of little side meetings going off here and there, and people on couches, and the vendors were sort of a natural part of the fabric of the show. And I'm just wanting to get your perspective. What's the secret to a great event? How did you create that atmosphere?
I really appreciate that. That is love hearing that. And that's why we're in the business. It's very rewarding when you nail it. And when we walked away from the show, we knew we hit the right notes this year. The secret to a great event, how I'd answer that today is different than how I would have answered it a couple of years ago and 5 years before that. So it's always changing. Right now, so in the age of AI that we're in, that's the conversation today. So we'll put that filter on top of your question is really, we've always been known for great content. We've always got the top players in the game speaking. And in that case, I'm talking about entrepreneurs that are building SaaS and AI companies. Speaking has always been our goal. That's maybe how you draw them in. But we have all these different tracks at the conference. And the joke is the hallway track. You got your keynote track, you got your breakout track, you got your roundtables, but there's the hallway track. And why is the hallway track? It's these in-person meetings. The content draws them in, but the real value is the accidental, serendipitous interactions that happen in the hallways in between the sessions. And people like to belong to something. And I think we benefited and have always benefited, but maybe even a little more this year from the vibe. This is a conference for Canadian builders, building great things. And obviously with geopolitics and the world we're in right now, I think we doubled down on that. I think people felt like they're a part of something. They were really leaning into it. It's about being with like-minded people who are interested in the same things. The best in class, people attending feel that way about themselves. And then that hallway track built into the way we make the show happen.
In a tech ecosystem where we're often very predisposed to using technology to engage, how do you see the role of live events, in-person events, particularly within the context of Canada's evolving tech ecosystem?
I spent a lot of time on the front end of this business, on the marketing and as far as how we position our conferences. And I think about our customers coming and what are they worried about? I think it's all about trust right now. In a digital first world, in-person events are one great place to build trust. We got to break out of our silos and you got to get out there and meet people. And the ability to showcase the real people behind your company, what you're like, what your company's, your brand at a conference in person it's a golden age for that. We're all being inundated by cold outbound. Let's just put it that way. How do you cut through that noise? Meeting in person is a great way to do it.
Something you just said I've never thought about before was about comfort zones. Like events, some people are born to it, right? Like some people thrive on the cut and thrust of being in a room. And I think an equal number probably aren't naturally predisposed to like that sort of networking. And maybe there's something about events that pushes us to be better by taking us out of our comfort zone a bit.
We're certainly trying to facilitate those types of interactions. Ultimately, the people in the room have to take the initiative to move the conversations forward. And I think the help this year with that sort of community, everybody's part of this club. We're building in AI, we're building big companies where there's a little rah, go Canada vibe going on right now, more than usual.
For sure.
So that probably helps with that. This is a safe audience. This is a room filled with entrepreneurs. So if you're building a company, chances are the people in the room, they're all building in the same sort of zone. That's what's nice about this event with the size, the scale, 2,000 people being big, but not too big. And mostly everybody you talk to is going to have relevance to your business if you're building an AI or a SaaS company.
And certainly AI, we were talking just before we started the recording here that, right out of the gate with your event this year, what was the name of the app? It was Bordy. I got that right? It was Bordy, wasn't it? And so people who don't know, this was a virtual assistant to sort of help you onboard me to the event. We've all spoken to our share of these sort of agents, but this one was seamless and worked. And it connected me with like 5 out of the 10 people I actually ended up recording.
Interesting that you mentioned what you just talked about, this sort of AI matchmaking assistant. I don't have the data right in front of me. Let's say 30% use that assistant. Some people are interested in having that conversation. Other people would like to use more of a traditional app. And other people don't do a prep before they come to the conference at all. So we try to build for all these different personality types, if you will. That using that AI assistant, just like our customers who are building AI into their apps or rebuilding their apps entirely as AI native, we have to be thinking about our customers. And I think that's a theme we're going to have today in this conversation. You got to always be thinking about what the customer's needs are. So if we're going to say a theme, the theme of the conference was future-proofing SaaS in the age of AI. Where does SaaS stop and AI start, et cetera? But I think to put this question into context, the theme that came out of the conference was we've moved from this sort of AI for everything to like AI for results. We talked about from SaaS to RaaS, one of our keynote speakers, which is Michael Litt, which is software as a service to results as a service. This use of this AI agent for us was very much about results. How can we help people go to the show and get something very specific that they want to get out of the event? So that was our ability to take the show where normally it's a bit of a little crapshoot as meeting people at a show. Obviously you get the content and you have these serendipitous meetings and they're great, but you can also get some stuff in play before you even get there. It was AI for results was the theme, I would say, unofficial theme of the conference, and also the way we took to heart and how we built the event.
Yeah, if another way to say that is it's sort of show me time for AI this year and beyond. And I think starting with that AI assistant did show me it actually produced a result for me as an attendee by connecting me in a very easy way that saved me a ton of time because I don't like plowing through apps to connect with people like a dating site or something. Like I like the fact that it was semi-automated, but I gave it a brief and it respected the brief. And that was real value for me. Another theme that stood out for me this year was the whole notion of build versus buy. And, you heard that about like a lot of the people I spoke with and a lot of people on stage. Like they're definitely, I came up with this term bot fooding, which hasn't really taken off to be fair, but it's like, the classic startup dog fooding, using your own tech to build your own operations to improve it. I saw a lot of people talking about using agents and generative AI and combining them with knowledge bases to build their own tech. Is that something you picked up on?
Yeah, it's like automation of automation, not just making your tasks faster, but basically rewriting the entire workflow. Again, it's moving from being a co-pilot to an agent. It's like we're moving towards executing complex work autonomously. And some people are pretty far along on that, as we saw at the event, and some people are behind. I'll put myself in the behind category compared to them. But these people are at the tip of the spear on AI adoption in the room, right? They are doing some incredible things. That, again, automation of automation. It's basically, it's the entire workflow being rewritten.
Yeah, that's something I've been talking about as well on LinkedIn. Like if you thought a year ago that maybe the next step in your career was to learn how to develop automations, well, guess what? Automation itself is being automated. I don't think people realize that. It's sort of a meta point, right? That's kind of hard to get your head around, but that's what's happening. And so that notion that you read about sometimes of the 10-person unicorn, I don't know if it's Sam Altman or whoever said that, but there was people on your stage that were, definitely aspiring to some version of that.
That was one of the stories we caught on to, and we found some people who are working that playbook.
Yeah.
They're not there yet, but they're being very efficient, and they're thinking of their AI agents as their workforce, and they are thinking of themselves as a chief of staff of their, this is a mindset.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that brings up an interesting point with regard to SaaS, where this event obviously is focused on software as a service, which was one of the last big evolutions in tech. But as people turn towards building instead of buying, what are your thoughts on what this means for the SaaS sector? I mean, if you're selling software, are you worried right now, or are you finding ways to pivot? Like, what are you picking up on as someone who's sort of at the nexus of all these SaaS vendors and founders?
Interesting question again. And I will fully admit that I'm an event entrepreneur, not a builder. I'm obviously privy and around all these conversations, but I think, again, we're moving from features to outcomes. Results as a service, again, versus paying for a seat. The customer wants results. AI is the engine that is going to make that shift possible to get very granular about giving people what they want. I'm just as interested in the answer to the question that you asked me. I don't know the answer to what's going to happen to the word SaaS. I think about it all the time. The conference is called SaaS North. In the end, again, we think about results. This is really a conference for entrepreneurs building companies. So that's great. And that's what we'll continue to do going forward.
Keep that through line and it'll be just fine. Okay, so, continuing down that path of exploring AI in the SaaS sector and maybe focusing a bit more on the founders behind those companies. To me, it has more than just another software. It has a level of agency, hence agents. It has a level of reasoning, it has a level of generative capabilities that you just didn't see with previous generations of technology. So I believe it's different and better thought of as a type of a colleague than as another software technology. And I was wondering what that does to business leaders you're seeing out there. What sort of skills or mindset or perspectives are you seeing that they have to help navigate this change?
I've got a word for you, and I've thought about this word as defining the types of people we like to hire into our company. And I think defining entrepreneurs in general, successful entrepreneurs. And that word is, because you talked about mindset, I think the mindset is curiosity. I think we all have to, as leaders, be curious about these tools. Now, some of us are more inclined, maybe the more tech savvy individuals out there are already doing incredible things with AI. There are some that I know, leaders, that are not. There's a fear. So I think we need to start building into our calendars time to experiment with these tools, like making sure that we are experimenting to see how we can use them. Because let's focus on the problem. Let's not get distracted by the shiny tools themselves. There's a lot of useful tools out there. There's a lot of tools that will drain your bank account. The shiny object syndrome will be in full effect. So I think, what problem are we trying to solve? This is a question I always ask myself when I get distracted by, in this case, the AI tools out there. So pick a problem in your workflow and focus on that. Pick something that you're repeating over and over again and focus on that. And then find a way to automate it or to simplify it or to streamline it using an AI tool. But that starts with curiosity. You got to be questioning your workflow. You got to be saying, you know what? I've been doing this the same way for 5 years, and there's got to be a better way to do this. I think efficiency is obviously the big gain here. I can't help but think of my own business being a very detail-oriented, event-based company. There's a lot of details, so there's a lot of operational things we can streamline, and we are.
Yeah, you'd be happy to hear that one of the folks I met, a guy named Nish Patel, who's actually from here in Ottawa, super sharp mind. I featured him in one of the Field Note episodes that I recorded at your conference. And, he's got this notion of let machines machine so people can people. Nish and I are now going to start a project and we're going to explore like what that means. What does it mean to let machines machine and let people people?
Very cool. I love that. Let machines machine and people
Yeah.
people. That's great. I'm going to use that.
So, there's been a lot of talk in the news. Apparently, Canadians just aren't using AI. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like, are you seeing they just not getting through to people in Canada specifically, or?
I think you touched on something there. The customer facing is the harder part, because rightly we care how our customers are treated and how they feel, and so unless they're opting in to work with an AI agent of some kind, like you did when you came to the conference to work with our agent and planning your attendance, you're, at least at this point, very focused on other parts of your business that you can work on. Efficiency is just one piece. Obviously, the sales and marketing side is huge. And any marketer knows this already who's listening to this. They're already, and a local company, another, not to focus on all these great companies in Ottawa, but another great company that's doing something amazing is Knack. Knack, they've just launched a fully automated AI email builder, because any marketer knows. And now let's just say the words that you want to put in your email, but actually building that email, that HTML email to send out, is a very time consuming process. There's all kinds of companies solving very specific problems out there that, let's say right now you're spending 4 or 5 hours building one email. Well, what if you could do that in half an hour? Obviously the operational efficiency is off the charts, but I think to go to your question though, yes, in Canada, we're conservative. We're slow off the mark sometimes with really investing in these new technologies. We're known for our research, but we're not known for commercializing.
And another thing I heard that again, to sing praises of Nish, who I met at your event, he said people talk a lot about AI transformation, but it's human transformation that's happening here. We need to respond to the technology. It's doing okay. It's a large language model. It's us that need to respond to this moment. And so he really opened my eyes on that too.
Yeah, I think, like we said, if I was trying to push myself to implement more AI in my company, I would pick these repetitive problems. Now, if I was building a SaaS or an AI company, I would think about this a little differently. This came up at the conference quite a bit because obviously this is a conference filled with people who are building the SaaS and AI native tools of the future. And they're most successful when they solve a painful, expensive problem for a specific customer.
It's like in your case, I mean, onboarding people to an event is a business challenge, but I think what you did that was clever is give people the option. And then, like you said at the start, the choice. Like I didn't have to use Bordy, but I turned out I loved Bordy because it worked really well. I did put on an Australian accent. I think it even gave me the choice of accents. I can't remember, but I was like, why are you Australian?
They built Bordy with an Australian accent, and there's a story from the founder on why he did that. I think, and that's probably an interesting psychology discussion about why that Australian accent was chosen. But that was a great addition to the conference, and we're going to continue to do that, to try new things, But again, it's just like our customers, surprise and delight them. I mean, that is what we think about with our events, and what company leaders, founders should always be thinking about their customers. How do you surprise and delight your customers?
I'm glad you brought that up because there's this guy, I don't know if you know this on Instagram. There's some people, I'm sure this is a deliberate tactic to make you watch their reels like 5 times to understand what the hell they're saying. So they really race through points. And this guy's always talking about AI agents and AI. But one thing he does repeat about is like, use AI to do something amazing. Like think hard, think creatively, do something, to your point, that surprises and delights that people would have not have expected a small company, a medium-sized company to have the resource to do,
It's even better than that, Chris. It is to do something that we never would have been able to do before. It was literally something that we couldn't do. You couldn't, you couldn't contact 2,000 people for a conference and help them set up them. You had an app to do that. They had to do that on their own self-serve. And some people chose to use Bordy instead of the app. And that was the upgrade. It's like, to have this conversational, you could have a chat while you're driving your car. You could put your AirPods in and have a conversation while you're walking your dog. And that's actually how I talked to Bordy before the conference. I just did it on my headset while I was doing something else. Again, I read someone else, I think it was Zapier. Zapier is obviously a famous company out there, and they're big on the AI agents now, and they were doing a version of this before AI. They're basically saying, tackle something that you've never been able to even tackle. It would be unfathomable for a company of 15 people to talk to 1,000 attendees the week before a conference, or 2,000. It's impossible. But now we could do that and provide this other level of experience and productivity at the conference and ROI for someone who bought a ticket, make that product more valuable. Yeah.
And not just a replacement of what might have been done through a typical piece of software, but it was much more personal, right? It knew that I was media and attending for a different reason. And it would be very difficult to put that sort of business logic into an app. I mean, you'd have to code it in, right? And whereas this thing is sort of using a level of reasoning and logic to work out that I was media and to help me solve my problems or wish list at the event. Yeah. Like you couldn't have done that. Like you go broke onboarding people like me times 1,000, 2,000. So what are some of the traits that you think as SaaS companies in Canada navigate, these disruptions? You've seen different waves of companies come and go. You see characteristics in the companies that make it through to the tough times?
I wish I had a really succinct, short answer. Again, the answer is it depends on leadership. It depends on capital markets. It depends on so many. I use the word curiosity and resilience, all that. I think in the future, 2026, 2027, Canadian SaaS companies, I think we have to focus on. Hopefully, they continue to build in Canada. There's a lot of discussion about that builders being lured to the valley and so forth, and some are making the stand to stay here. Obviously, in the end, it comes down to money in many cases, and there's a lot of opportunity down south. There's some challenges for the industry. We've also got a little bit of the patriotism, and again, talking a little bit about the Canadian SaaS, I think there's a lot of opportunities for Canadian SaaS companies in the next couple of years. I think we could get a little bit into the predictions. A few years ago, there was a lot of talk about in the earlier stages, for the early startups, like very early stage startups, blending services with SaaS. And that was a way to get off the ground. Offering services with SaaS, and that consulting / SaaS. Now, a lot of companies aren't doing that. There's been some opinions that I've been privy to that the future of SaaS is which part of your company is AI, which part still requires humans, and how can you package that into a guaranteed results for a customer? Like, again, I'm thinking about the future workforce. I'm thinking about people in the loop. I'm thinking about customer service. I'm thinking about when we're all talking to AI agents all the time, certain companies that offer the human touch. Does that stand out more? And how are humans in the loop? And again, guaranteeing results for your customer. That's what we're selling in the future.
Yeah, a couple of things that you said struck me there. One is just on the Canadian ecosystem that it was really good news for me to see a company called Gumloop open their office in Vancouver. They started in Vancouver and then they moved to Silicon Valley and they're trying to, do their agentic thing. They're like an N8N or a Make.com or kind of like a Zapier to your point. And so I don't know the reasons why they came back, but just that fact they opened the office, I think was because they have the potential to be almost like a Cohere of the West Coast, in my opinion. I mean, they're right at the forefront of agentic. And another thing that you said that really stood out for me is, adding services to SaaS. And I think that's really an interesting point. And so when you think about change management, HR, there is a real opportunity, and this also speaks to the AI adoption challenge we have in this country, for companies to not forget they have an inside view, they have expertise, they have knowledge that can be shared beyond their platforms and their software, and to help other organizations go through that human transformation. And this might affect our hiring plans for next year. You might want to start looking at people in change management to augment your core technology with this human transformation that needs to take place over the next year or two. So
absolutely. We have to keep humans at the core of our AI strategy, whatever that looks like, whether we're building an AI native company or we're running, in my case, a conference business that is using AI to provide a better product and to be more efficient and to grow. How is the human element part of your strategy? I think that's a great exclamation point to end on for the conversation today.
100%. So, David Tyldesley, thank you so much for joining us today. You're the co-founder of Cube Business Media, and I'm hoping we're going to see you again next year in Ottawa, next November.
Absolutely. SaaS North will be back for the 11th year in Ottawa next year. So, and always innovating, always keeping things interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there again.
I can't wait for it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for tuning in to Ask AI, your guide to spotting opportunities and navigating challenges in the era of artificial intelligence. Since 2017, our independent nonprofit has brought together experts, volunteers, and innovators to share balanced insights on AI and the transformation of work. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking AI. You can access more free resources and subscribe to our newsletter at askai.org. That's askai.org.